Hey there, adventurers! Welcome to another episode of Catechism for Kids, where we explore the amazing stories of the Bible and learn how we can follow God's path. Today we meet a very special lady named Ruth. She was a brave and faithful woman who taught us how to trust God no matter what. So let's dive into her incredible journey. The book of Ruth is a short story in the Old Testament. It tells about a woman named Ruth who stays loyal to her mother-in-law, Naomi. Ruth was not an Israelite, but she chose to follow Naomi's people and her God. This choice leads her on a path of kindness, hope, and new life. The story begins with sadness. Naomi, her husband, and their 2 sons leave Bethlehem because of a famine. In a foreign land, Naomi's husband and sons die. Naomi is left with her 2 daughters-in-law, Ruth and Orpah. Naomi tells them to return to their families. Orpah goes back, but Ruth stays. Ruth says she will go wherever Naomi goes. She even says Naomi's God will be her God. This strong promise shows her deep love and loyalty. The 2 women return to Bethlehem with nothing but each other. Life is hard, but Ruth works in the fields to care for Naomi. In the end, Ruth marries a good man named Boaz. They have a son named Obed. Obed becomes the grandfather of King David. This makes Ruth part of the family line that leads to Jesus. Her story shows how love, faithfulness, and trust can bring blessings. The book of Ruth takes place during the time of the Judges. This was a time before Israel had kings. People often made poor choices, and there was little peace. There were many hard years, and life was uncertain. The story shows how one small family tried to survive during these troubled times. The book does not name the author. Some think it may have been written by the prophet Samuel. Others believe it was written later. The exact time is not clear, but many agree it was written to help people remember the story of Ruth and her family. Even though it is a short book, it has a big place in the Bible. Ruth's story shows that people from other nations can be part of God's plan. It also shows how kindness and loyalty can change lives. The book also reminds readers about King David's family. Ruth, a woman from Moab, became the great-grandmother of David. This is important for the story of Israel and for the story of Jesus. The book of Ruth is written like a short story. It has a clear beginning, middle, and end. The story is easy to follow. It talks about real people and real struggles. There are no big battles or miracles. It is quiet and calm. The book uses simple language. It shows what people say and do. Much of the story happens through conversations. These words help us understand the people better. We see how Ruth, Naomi, and Boaz think and feel by how they speak. The story also uses a lot of images from daily life. It talks about farming, gathering grain, and family. These things help us picture the world of Ruth. Even today, people can relate to it. Though it is short, the book is carefully written. Each part fits together. It moves slowly but with meaning. It shows that even small acts of care and love can change the future. The book of Ruth teaches many lessons that connect with Catholic faith. It may be a small book, but it shares big truths about how we live and how God works in our lives. First, it teaches us about loyalty and love. Ruth stays with Naomi even when it is hard. This reminds us of how we are called to stay with others in times of trouble. Love means not giving up. Secondly, it is about trust in God's plan. Ruth does not know what will happen next, but she follows anyway. Catholics are also called to trust, even when life is unclear. Number 3, it shows that God includes everyone. Ruth is not from Israel, but she becomes part of God's people. The Church teaches that all people are welcome in God's family. It also teaches us about family and care. Ruth works hard to care for Naomi. Boaz cares for Ruth. Their actions show how families and communities are meant to support one another. And lastly, it shows that God works through ordinary life. There are no big signs or wonders in this book, but God is still present in small things, like harvesting grain and making promises. Catholics believe that God is with us in daily life, not just in big events. The story of Ruth shows that love, faith, and trust can grow in simple acts. It also helps prepare the way for the coming of Jesus, who is part of Ruth's family line. The story of Ruth still speaks to us today. Even though it happened long ago, the message is easy to understand. People today still face loss, hard choices, and the need to care for others. Ruth shows us how to live with love and trust in hard times. Many families today deal with change and struggle. Ruth left her old life behind to care for Naomi. She teaches us that loyalty matters, even when it is difficult. Her actions remind us that faith and love are shown through what we do, not just what we say. Ruth was also an outsider, but she was welcomed and became part of a new family. In the church today, we are called to welcome people from all places. Ruth's story reminds us that God's family is wide and full of mercy. Her simple faith, strong work, and quiet courage still shine. Ruth shows us that small acts of kindness can lead to something good. Her story is a gift for families, for those who feel alone, and for anyone learning to trust again. The book of Ruth is included in the Roman Catholic lectionary. It is not read often, but when it is, the message is clear and strong. The Church chooses this book to remind us of faith, family, and trust. One of the most well-known parts is read at weddings. Ruth chapter 1 verse 1, 3-6, 14b-16. And verse 22 tells how Ruth stays with Naomi. She says, "Where you go, I will go." This shows love and loyalty. It is a good reading for couples who are starting a new life together. Ruth chapter 2 verses 1-3, 8-11, and chapter 4. Verses 13-17 is read during weekday Mass in year. These verses show how Ruth meets Boaz and how they become a family. It reminds us that God works through daily events, like work and marriage. Even though it is a short book, Ruth has a special place in the church. Her story points to Jesus, because Ruth is part of his family tree. Her faith and love are remembered in prayer and in worship. And you know what's even more amazing? It's through their love story. God also had a plan. You see, many years later, Ruth and Boaz became great-grandparents of King David. And guess what? Jesus, our Savior, is a descendant of King David. So through Ruth's love and faithfulness, God chose her to be part of Jesus' family tree. Isn't that incredible? Let's think about the lessons we learned from Ruth. First, being faithful means doing what you say you will do, no matter how difficult it might be. Ruth chose to stay with her mother-in-law, even though it meant leaving her own family and friends. Second, being faithful means trusting God, just like Ruth trusted that God would take care of her on her journey to Bethlehem. Sometimes when we're doing God's work, like sharing the Bible with others, it might seem scary and challenging. But remember, just like Ruth, we can trust God to help us. Third, being faithful means being kind and helpful to others. Ruth showed kindness to Naomi by taking care of her, and to Boaz by working hard in the fields. Being kind and helpful to everyone is a great way to show that we are God's children. So, children, remember the story of Ruth. When things are tough and you feel like giving up, remember her bravery. When you need to be kind and helpful, remember her compassion. And when you want to trust God more, remember her faithfulness. Wow, what an amazing story of love, loyalty, and faith. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Catechism for Kids. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share with your friends. May God bless you, and until next time, keep exploring His amazing Word.